not secure. So we are really advised to hold on to these safety tips. The meeting may last for 30 minutes or thereabout. So we are advised to stand up and straighten our limbs, our legs, and our hands, and then get back to our seat again. You are all welcome to this technical session from Uyo Calabar chapter. Please, may we all stay safe. You are welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abraham. At this moment, I'd like to invite our public secretary to take on the announcement, before we kick off with the presentation. Dr. Kufre, please, you can share your screen.
Hello. Hello, am I being heard now? Hello, am I being heard
Hello,
now?
Ben. Hello,
Yes.
Professor. Yeah.
Are
This
you
is the, we're hearing you. We're hearing you, sir.
okay?
Go
Are
ahead.
you hearing me now?
We are hearing you. Go ahead.
Okay. 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 Let me just start the announcement, please. I had issues sharing the screen, so I had to switch to my phone. But the slide is in my system. My system was just hanging, so I could not continue. So, but I will try to give the announcement. Just listen, you still get to hear. The first, like I said, is our annual conference, annual international conference and exhibition, the 40th international conference and exhibition that is holding from the 13th to 17th of November 2022 at AKWA Hotel and Suites in Victoria Island, Lagos. With the theme Global Energy Transition and the Future of Oil and Gas Industry, Evolving Regulations, Emerging Concepts and Opportunities. Next is the deadline for submission of abstract. I think that has already, that was extended, but the deadline was over like a month ago. I think currently the acceptance, we are at the stage of submission of full papers for the conference. So if you have not submitted your abstract, I don't think the window is no longer open now for submission of abstract. Then we have the pre-conference workshop that we hold on Wednesday, 26th October 2022 at 9 a.m. There will be a golf tournament, annual golf tournament, from the 4th of November to the 6th of November. So we get to meet that also. Then we have the exhibition. Please, I don't know if you can see the screen now. Are we there?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, let's talk about the membership dues. Please, we are encouraged to pay up our dues so that we can remain active members of the association. Students are to pay 2,000, active members 12,000, associate members 12,000, and corporate members 50,000. It is important for us to pay our dues so that we can enjoy every benefit that members of NAPE are supposed to enjoy and take part in all the activities of NAPE. We have technical meetings like we have today. On the 27th of September, the Benin chapter will have their technical meeting with the team looking beyond exploration and exploitation of oil and gas, the jet scientists, and the non-oppugnant oil and gas-related crime scene. On the 28th, the AKWA chapter will have their technical meeting with the team, Energy Transition Journey and Role of Jet Scientists. That will be presented by John Bosco Uche. Then we have the elections. I know go online to cast your vote. The election committee members, okay, I don't think I need to mention those ones. The people you need to know are those that are actually standing the election. And time will not permit me to start mentioning all of them now, because there are many. But just know that the election is on and you need to pay up your dues to be part of the election by casting your vote. We have several activities going on, and we should always visit the NAPE website so as to be up to date with events that are taking place in NAPE. So for now, those are the announcements. I am so sorry for not being able to share the screen. Like I said, I intended to use my system and it is there, but somehow the system hanged, so I could not continue with it. I had to switch to my phone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DPS. And at this moment, I want to invite the Vice President. I'd like to also recognize the President-elect of NAPE, who is here, in the person of Mr. Elliott. You're welcome, sir. And then Dr. Karakban, former chapter coordinator for Uyo Calabar chapter. I also want to recognize the chapter executives and every other member of NAPE on board. And so at this time, I would like to invite the President-elect to take the speech of the President, a welcoming speech. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Harry, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
We can hear you, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Yes. So the President is unavoidably absent. I just want to, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the Advisory Council, the Executive Committee of the Association, as well as fellows and members, to welcome you all to these technical and business meeting of this chapter. I'm personally excited to be part of this meeting today because of the initial comments made by the chapter POPSEC as part of our preparations for this year's conference. Well, we'll also be pleased to come to the beautiful city of Uyo for the annual golf tournament. So we'll be especially pleased to be part of your chapter during this event in November, and then invite you over to Lagos for the 13 to 17 November event. But specific to this event today, I think we are excitedly looking forward to listening to this topic around the implications of hydrocarbon generation for continental and oceanic crust, and listening to Professor BASSEY give this talk. NAPE is excited this year to also have this major election year, and even though a lot of the opposition are being unopposed, we expect that we will join in and take part in the electioneering process. Go into the website. Well, first make sure that we have paid our dues properly. Able to vote in the incoming executive committee. I'm also encouraging members of this chapter to volunteer for NAPE activities. We still have a lot of slots available in case you're interested in helping out for preparations towards this year's conference. And I'm looking forward to hearing from a number of you. Well, but by and large, I think we're just happy to be part of this meeting today, and do have a nice day, and we'll listen in and have a great and successful outing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, my esteemed President-elect. I also want to recognize the presence of the editor-in-chief, the person of Christopher Jackson. You're welcome. The former chapter of Abuja, chapter coordinator rather, Mr. Ibazwaye. I can also see dear Professor Nwajide, esteemed professor of great repute. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in. I also want to especially welcome the chapter coordinator of Mori chapter, Mr. Wilson Osung, the staff of geology. I can see many of them in Yemen, Ethiopia, and many other members that have come to this call. Thank you very much. At this moment, I'd like to invite Professor Ida Akpabio to please take the opening prayers. We skip that mistakenly, and then also introduce the speaker so we can get into the technical session. Thank you very much. Professor Idara, over to you.
Out there. Please, can you confirm? Please, can you confirm I'm being heard?
Yes, you're heard. Go ahead, sir.
Let us start with an opening prayer. Our Father, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercies. We thank you for the benevolence you bless your name. And we ask, O Lord, that your presence shall be here as usual to lead and direct. You, while the knowledge, the transmission of knowledge will be ours. Have your way, Lord. In Jesus' name, we have prayed. It's my pleasure to invite Professor NSIKAK BASSEY on the limitation of continental oceanic crustal boundary using filtered magnetic data. The crux of all this will be to highlight on the implications. Professor NSIKAK BASSEY has been a renowned geologist, a geophysicist of so many years, a geoscientist of so many years. And we are here to tap from this wealth of experience. So I'm really happy that we are gathered here to share in his wealth of experience. And so it's my pleasure to invite Professor NSIKAK BASSEY on board. On this topic we have mentioned. Professor, you're welcome. You have the floor.
Mr. Tunde, please kindly share the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And welcome to this technical presentation. I'm NSIKAK BASSEY, and I will talk on the topic, the limitation of continents continental-oceanic crust, coastal boundary in the southeast sector of major geographic data. Slide 2. Can you see the next slide? Okay, this is the outline of presentation. We'll start with the introduction. Then I want to have aim and objective, study area location, left flow, general information in crustal heat and hydrocarbon generation, magnetic data and processing, results and discussion, conclusion and acknowledgement. Next slide, please. The aim of the work is to define continent-ocean coastal boundary, that is COB, offshore the southeast sector of Niger Delta and take data. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Dr. Harry, we are not really hearing you.
We use WinLink version 2.03 to system software. Next slide. This is the geothermal data and hydrocarbon formation slide. Now, heat flow data and related structural parameters usually require that sediments be deposited over continental crust, which contain adequate radiant elements, which are responsible for heat generation in the crust. This aids in organic matter maturation and conversion of energy and then to petroleum, and takes place within a temperature range of 50 to 200 degrees centigrade. At temperatures above 250 degrees centigrade, the remaining organic matter transforms to graphite, oil forms with a relatively low temperature range, which is called the oil window. Based on this, the demarcation of continent-ocean boundary is very important, as continental oceanic crustal temperature affect overlying sediments. Next slide. This shows the oil window, oil formed within a relatively narrow temperature range. That is from 50 to 200 degrees centigrade. Beyond this, the organic matter transforms to gas plus coke and eventually to graphite. Next slide. The data here is heat flow data over various segments of the crust. Oceanic crust has a heat flow value of 1.27 milliwatts per square meter. And the mid-oceanic ridge is 1.97, and the Precambrian shield, which is where the sediments build up on the continental side, is 0.98 milliwatts per square meter. Next slide. There have been previous attempts to demarcate the continental oceanic boundary by various geophysical workers. For example, Bullard et al. 1965 suggested that the delta has built out over the ocean or transitional crust. The position was supported by gravity data of Hosplas 1965 and Stoney 1966. BASSEY and others 2010 did some work on the current issue and mapped the continent-ocean crustal boundary at about 50 kilometers to the west and 100 kilometers to the east of the Atlantic coastline. However, these authors, that is BASSEY and others, did not identify the transitional crust, which has been identified in the present work and will be illustrated. It seems that generally there has been no agreement on the exact position of the continent-ocean coastal boundary. Next slide. Why is this work, or why was this work undertaken? Because as exploration for hydrocarbon progresses to deeper waters due to the increased global demand for petroleum, it becomes necessary to understand better the nature of the crust underlying the offshore sedimentary basin of the Niger Delta. And potential field data comes readily to provide a means of studying the crust under the sedimentary basin. In this work, we make use of aeromagnetic data. Next slide. This is magnetic data processing. The total magnetic intensity map, which is TMI, was reduced to pole so as to enhance seafloor spreading anomalies, which is typical of the oceanic floor, oceanic basements. And then the 4th degree polynomial fitting was done to filter shallow magnetic features. This resulted in a regional map, which was extracted to distinguish clearly zones of continental crust from oceanic crust based on magnetic anomaly differences on the filtered regional magnetic data. First horizontal gradient magnetic map was generated to enhance fault zones in the study area. The first two processes, that is reduction to pole and 4th degree polynomial fitting, enabled us to distinguish between the continental and oceanic crusts and then the transitional zone or transitional crust. The last helped in mapping the placentas. Next slide. This is a histogram of magnetic susceptibilities of rocks. Basic rocks, which includes basalt. Basalt underlies the ocean floor, is the highest with 190 times 10 to the power 6 SI, followed by acidic igneous rocks, which underlie the continent, which is 50 times 10 to the power 6 SI. Metamorphic rocks come third, and the sedimentary rocks consisting of limestone, sandstone, and shale are the least. Next slide. This is figure 5 showing the total intensity magnetic map to the right and the location map to the left. We can see the Niger Delta coastline, the onshore region on the total magnetic intensity map, to the north of the coastline and the offshore region to the south of the coastline. Next slide. The total magnetic intensity map 2D version to the left, this is figure 6, and the 3D equivalent to the right. Notice the numerous convolutions, anomalies, to the south of the 3D map. There are numerous anomalies, significant anomalies, and to the extreme southeast portion, we have very strong anomalies. This is due to the Cameroon volcanic line, which lies adjacent to Nigeria and is the eastern limit of the Niger Delta. Next slide. Reduction to pole of magnetic data is to enable us to see what the magnetic field would look like if it were acquired at the north magnetic pole. In the present work, reduction to pole has produced north-south magnetic stripes, that is found in figure 6, oluminations which characterize oceanic floor spreading anomalies. Remnant magnetization is acquired thermally by oceanic crust basalts, which form contemporaneously along axis spreading ridge and acquire the same polarity of magnetization. The long stripes of similarly magnetized crust form on opposite sides of the spreading ridge, maybe hundreds of kilometers in length and several tens of kilometers wide. Next slide. To the left is the total magnetic intensity map unprocessed, and to the right is the reduction to pole magnetic map of the same area. We can see north-south anomalies in greenish color. These are the magnetic stripes, which are typical of oceanic floor magnetic anomalies. Southwards, the offshore zone, the stripes have a higher concentration compared to the northern section, which is the continental crust, the onshore region. Next slide. The reduction to pole map shows the linear magnetic anomalies, as I've said before, typical of oceanic crust anomalies. These were first observed by Vines and Matthew in 1963. The magnetic stripes are fairly concentrated southwards.
What's going to share?
Share, please. Okay, thank you. Now, the magnetic stripes are fairly concentrated on the southward part, as we have seen the offshore zone. The frequency is higher compared to the onshore zone, which is the north part, north of the coastline. The paucity of the stripes in the north part is attributed to transition from oceanic to continental crusts. Eastwards is a high gradient north of northwest trending anomalous zone of about 50 kilometers in width. This is attributed to the Cameroon volcanic line, CVL magmatism. Next slide. Next slide, yes. Yeah, this is figure 9. To the right, we have magnetic stripes from Regent's Ridge in Iceland in the North Sea or the North Atlantic. Iceland is the only prominent place where the mid-oceanic ridge, the mid-Atlantic ridge outcrops, and it affords us the opportunity to study the magnetism of the seafloor without having to descend into the sea. Next slide. This is an attempt in figure 10 to relate the magnetic stripes from the mid-Atlantic ridge to the left and the magnetic stripes derived from this study, that is Southeast Niger Delta. We can see north-south trending stripes on both sides. So these are typical of oceanic floor anomalies, and they are produced by seafloor spreading. Next slide. To the right of the picture, figure 11, is the mid-Atlantic ridge basalt. as it outcrops above sea level in Iceland in the North Atlantic. And then to the left, we have basalts on the continent. This is obtained from some area in Adamawa state of Nigeria. You can see the blocky nature of the basalts. That of the left, which is from Nigeria, is part of the Cameroon volcanic line. That of the right is from the Mid-Atlantic ridge. Next slide. To the left is a total magnetic intensity map unprocessed, and then to the right is a 4th degree polynomial regional map of the study area. Note the distinct magnetic high zones in the south of the right figure. This is attributed to high magnetic susceptibility of basalt, which characterize the oceanic crust. Next slide. Yeah, based on the maps which have been shown before now, the reduction to pole anomaly map, the 4th degree regional magnetic map, and the total intensity magnetic map 3D, there's an attempt to demarcate between the continental crust to the north, transitional zone, midway, and then southwards, we have the offshore, the oceanic crusts. You see that on the top left figure, the magnetic stripes are more concentrated southwards offshore zone compared to the northern zone that is north of the shoreline. And intermittently, they are midway in terms of frequency. And then the top right photograph, sorry, the top right map, we have very high magnetic anomalies southwards. That is the oceanic crust. And we have a quiet zone midway, which is the transitional crust. And then the continental crust has some level of strong magnetic anomalies. And then the lower figure, we have strong anomalous zone in the south, which is the oceanic crust, a lower magnetic zone, magnetic anomaly zone, midway, which is the transitional crust, and then the third category is the continental crust. This has more subdued anomalies of longer wavelength. Next slide. The 3 maps brought together again. Now, mapping of continental oceanic boundary from magnetic stripes, from magnetic maps are filtered and shown in this study based on the magnetic characteristics as expressed in the left figure, that is reduction to pole map, and then the 4th degree regional map middle figure, which highlights stronger anomalies offshore at 40 to 70 degrees nanotesla against very low values of mainly 0 to minus 110 degrees nanotesla onshore, as well as anomaly concentrations offshore from the total magnetic intensity map 3D. It is suggested that the crust in the study area is composed of continental segments, a transitional segment, and an oceanic segment. The oceanic crust boundary as obtained in this study lies at about 70 kilometers from the coastline in the west part of the study area and about 80 kilometers at the central part of the study area and 100 kilometers in the eastern part of the study area from the coastline. Next slide. Now, the implications of continent-ocean coastal boundary demarcation in petroleum exploration. The further the boundary lies to the south, that is towards the sea or ocean world, the more the basin will yield hydrocarbon if other basinal conditions are met, that is adequate thickness of sediment, as an example. This is because the continental crust has more radiogenic heat than oceanic crusts. The heat transforms organic matter in the mud to kerogen and to petroleum, which with increased temperature. As you can see, the graph to the left, on the y-axis is the temperature range or temperature, and then to the x-axis we have the distance. Now below it is the continental crusts, where we have the granite with more radioactive elements like potassium. This has more radioactive element than the basaltic oceanic crust. Basalt is depleted in feldspar, which contains potassium. So the oil would be generated more if the continental crust advances more towards the sea. Next slide. Next slide. Now, this is figure 16. It shows the first horizontal gradient map, which enhances faults and edges in the basement. The high anomaly zones are attributed to fault zones, while the low anomaly zones are attributed to deposenters, areas of thickness of sediments, greatest thickness of sediments within a basin. A total of 27 deposenters have been mapped in this study. And the left figure shows the 3D horizontal gradient map. You know, those red regions that you see correspond to the deposenters. Next slide. This is an attempt to relate the map we just discussed about, which enhances edges. That's the first horizontal magnetic anomaly map, to the distribution of hydrocarbon fields in the Niger Delta, especially in the study area. We can see that in the continental crust zone, we have so many oil and gas fields, and they seem to be decreased as we move southwards into the middle portion, and the least concentration of oil and gas fields is in the oceanic crust area. Next slide. The distribution of deposenters in the Niger Delta is fairly uniform. We have 29.6%, 37%, and 3.3% respectively in the continental crust, transitional crust, and oceanic crust respectively. The map to the left shows the distribution of depot belts in the study area, particularly in the study area. We have a small portion of Ughelli depot belts in the study area, and about 50% of the central swamp depot belts and coastal swamp depot belts lie within the continental crust. Part of the latter, that is part of the continental crust, lies within the transitional zone. There is no depot belt mapped over the oceanic crust. Next slide. Conclusions. From this study, the Southeast Niger Delta is underlain by segments of continental, transitional, and oceanic crust. The oceanic crust is recognized by magnetic stripes and other strong anomalies typical of basalts. The more the continental crust extends to the sea, the higher the potential for oil generation because of higher levels of radiogenic heat associated with continental crusts. The distribution of deposenters in the Southeast Niger Delta is fairly uniform, 29.6%, 37%, and 3.3% respectively, but more lies within the transitional crusts. A small portion of Ughelli depot belts, about 50% of both central swamp depot belts and coastal swamp depot belts, lie within the continental crust. Only the offshore depot belt lies within the transitional crust. There is no depot belt mapped over the oceanic crust. These are the conclusions drawn from this study. Next slide. Acknowledgement: magnetic data was got from Nigerian Geological Survey Agency of Nigeria, and Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria sponsored the research. The Department of Geology and Geophysics, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, trained on the use of geophysical softwares, WingLink, used in magnetic data processing. And the research was conducted when I was research advisor, sabbatical staff at SPDC in Port Harcourt under GeoSolutions, and I was a teaching staff of the Federal University of Technology, Yola, at that time, 2008-2009 session. softwares used were WingLink and ArcGIS and Software 7.0. I appreciate NAPE Uyo Calabar chapter for sponsoring this technical presentation and NAPE family globally. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Prof. Thank you very much, Professor NSIKAK, for that wonderful presentation. So I'll hand over to Professor Idara to take the questions and comments. If you have any comments, please unmute and go ahead and make your comment. If you also have questions, you can also ask. And then if you find it difficult to ask, you can send a chat and then we'll read it out. Thank you very much once again. Professor Idara Akbabe, please. Is somebody hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions, comments, please?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Professor NSIKAK BASSEY. Thank you very much, Professor NSIKAK BASSEY, for sharing your wealth of experience with us. I'm very sure and I'm confident that they may wish to ask one or two questions or want to make one or two comments. And so if you have any question to ask or a comment to make, you can either drop it as a chat or while waiting for you, may I ask Professor NSIKAK, just the table 1 that you showed, the heat flow data of 1973. Is it possible that if you were using a heat flow data later than 1973, that you probably would have gotten a different or slightly different result, if any? I'm saying so because I'm aware that there are several recent heat flow data in the Niger Delta. I'm just asking, would you have had a different result? Thank you. If you have any question, please raise your hand. Thank you. Professor NSIKAK BASSEY.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. The heat flow data as presented covers the crust, the crystalline crust, not the sediment. I think the heat flow data likely as you get from the Niger Delta are from the sedimentary basin, which shows especially the geothermal gradient. But these ones are the heat flow data from the crust, different segments of the continental crust and oceanic crust, such as the oceanic ridge, the Precambrian shield, the orogenic areas, and so on. It's not from the sedimentary basin.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. Thank you very much for your response. Do we have any queries or questions from anyone? Okay, while still expecting that the next 1 or 2 minutes before we round up, I'd like to bring to notice of Professor BASSEY under continental granitic crust that the oil generation is greater than the oceanic or basaltic region. Do you have specific reason for that, sir?
Yes, the reason is that under the continental crust, which is granitic, we have more feldspar, which is typical of granitic rocks, compared to what we have under the oceanic crust, which is basaltic. Basalt is generally depleted of feldspar, and feldspar contains potassium, which is a radiogenic element. So because the granitic crust is rich in feldspar, that's why it's able to produce more heat than the oceanic.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Professor NSIKAK. I know a lot of us, if anybody has anything to raise, we can also contact Professor NSIKAK BASSEY outside this forum. He's of the University, AKWA State University, so we can contact him privately if we need more information on this topic. I want to thank Professor NSIKAK BASSEY for giving us this sharing his wealth of experience with us. Thank you very much. Over to the coordinator, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our dear professor, for that moderation. So at this moment, I want to also specially thank the presenter, Professor NSIKAK BASSEY, for a wonderful presentation. We learned a lot. So I believe that since there were no questions, you understood everything he said. So that's excellent. So perhaps in the future, if you have queries, you can contact him directly. This presentation will be sent to NAPE. It will be online at any point in time, so you can access it if you want. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. At this time, I would like to say a big thank you to NAPE for the platform of sharing knowledge, all of the time. I want to also recognize every other person that I didn't recognize before. Noye Ni, one of our very top members, and other executives on board. I know we've been here for a while, and so I also have the one of our top officials as well, Mr. Abiodun Ibukunle. Thank you very much for coming over. Akin Lolua Adiola, Chikeze Nwakocha. Please, thank you so much for being part of our chapter presentation. So we've come to the end of this presentation, and so without wasting much time, I know we'll be taking time. I want to apologize for the initial itches, technical itches that we had. It's not easy to broadcast, and then you have people coordinating from different parts of the city. And we're excited for this opportunity. Once again, to our president-elect, who is still here with us, maybe you want to leave a closing remark before we say goodbye. So are you still on the call?
Yeah, Dr. Hari, I'm still here.
Okay. So a closing remark before we close, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. Again, thanks to the speaker, Professor Bassey, for his most insightful presentation today. And look forward to, like I said at the beginning, look forward to seeing the members of the chapter face-to-face during the golf tournament in November. But I want to thank all those who tuned in for this presentation today, for their patience, and I'm sure they gained a lot from the expose from the prof, and also to Professor Akpabio and Dr. Abraham for facilitating the event of today, and to the coordinator, Dr. Hari, for his usual charming disposition and presentation today. Thanks so much to the EXCO members who are on the call, as well as friends of the association, members of the association, and members of the board of trustees and the ACO are also on the call. So thank you so much for your time, and all the very best.
Thank you, everyone. See you at the next technical meeting. And remember, the conference is by the corner. Please register and make sure you vote as a member. Thank you, and God bless you. Have a nice day.